Now, as you just mentioned, according to Opta, Manchester City are incredibly likely to claim another Premier League title this season. Their supercomputer has been calculating the likelihood of different scenarios in the Premier League. James Savundra has had his calculator out as well. Any chance then it'll be someone other than Pep Guardiola and his team, James?
Yeah, first of all, let's give you some background on how this works. The Opta supercomputer estimates the probability of each match outcome, giving each team's attacking and defensive quality, and those attacking and defensive qualities are based on 4 years of historic results, with more weighting given to the most recent results. So the model takes into account the quality of the opposition that a team scores or concedes against, and then the supercomputer simulates the outcome of the season 10,000 times in order to estimate the likelihood of each team finishing in each league position. So as you say, Man City currently lead 87.1%. Liverpool and Arsenal given just a very small chance of winning the Premier League, despite the fact Man City are only 1 point ahead of Arsenal and Liverpool. So 87.1% chance of City winning the title for what would be a 4th consecutive season. And interestingly, Jurgen Klopp's side are given a marginally bigger chance of challenging for the title than Arsenal, despite the fact they finished 5th last season and Arsenal finished 2nd. Now, Spurs fans, any title aspirations you might have had a week ago, they pretty much evaporated, you think, after those last 2 defeats and all those injuries as well. And Rob, there's a 0.1% chance that John McGinn will lift in the Premier League trophy in May. What do you reckon?
There's a 0% chance, isn't it, James? And Leicester City did it in 2016. Every chance, not every chance, but 0.1% of a chance that Aston Villa might do. I mean, firstly, sort of said it jokingly, but that is remarkable that a team has an 87% chance of winning the Premier League in, the middle of November when they're 1 point clear. I guess it tells you everything about just what an amazing team Manchester City are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got the history of getting over the line. They've won 5 of the last 6 Premier League titles. But they aren't actually playing as well, or at least they haven't gained as many points as at this stage last year. They've actually got 1 fewer point, they've scored 8 fewer goals, they've conceded 1 more, but yet they're still top of the league, and they've had to do pretty much all of this season, except for 23 minutes, without Kevin De Bruyne. They're probably their outstanding attacking player. So it does bode well for them. I think Liverpool and Arsenal fans might feel rightly aggrieved that their percentages are so low, given the fact they've only lost 1 game respectively each. Man City have already lost 2, and Arsenal having, got within 5 points last year, and Liverpool having triumphed in 1920, they've both got experience of taking the title at least a certain way, and all the way in Liverpool's perspective. So it does feel a little bit weighted.
Well, it's just a moment when you said 1920. I was like, it wasn't that long ago, was it? So I know those are COVID years, they were bleak, but it wasn't 1920. What about the battle for the top 4 then, James?
Yeah, well, as expected, those 4 sides who are most highly ranked of potentially winning the Premier League, they are in the top 4 this season. Liverpool, Arsenal and Tottenham. Tottenham in there, despite the fact they finished 8th last season and outside the European places. And you'd think for Spurs fans, after what has happened over last week, they definitely take that, considering all the problems they're facing at the moment. Romero suspension, Maddison, Van der Ven out until the new year. Now, the supercomputer doesn't see Newcastle or Manchester United finishing in the top 4 this season, despite the fact they qualified for the Champions League last season. I think that's quite interesting. A 6.5% chance of United finishing in the top 4, though we do know a 5th place finish could this year secure Champions League football.
Yeah, James, thank you very much. I mean, a couple of interesting things there, Zach. One is it's just 7.5%, is it, for Manchester? James is standing right in the way at the moment. Thank you, James. 6.5% rather for Manchester United. But I guess one thing that the stats and the supercomputer doesn't take into account is injuries. It's like Newcastle, 24.8%, but they are really down to the bare bones at the moment.
Exactly, and that's all it can take at times. You do look at that Newcastle squad. They've obviously got Chelsea after the international break, a big game. Chelsea coming into it with some form as well after results against Spurs and Manchester City being a draw. And they're losing players, and all it takes is one of the other teams to lose a key goal scorer or a key defender or a key midfielder, whatever it might be, and the impact of that. We've seen Tottenham Hotspur obviously have several injuries to key players and drop off massively in their loss to Wolves on the weekend, and people wouldn't have said that just a couple of weeks ago. There are certain things you can't predict, and you can't really put into a computer and say, OK, what if this player gets injured halfway through, which is understandable. And based on form and that, I think it makes sense as to why those predictions are made. But football is not always about the numbers. It's not always about what happens, what we can predict. I think if you could predict it by numbers, you'd be a millionaire. However, that's not how it works. There are certain things, there are certain ways, a game just by the sound of the crowd getting behind their team can change things and can start a counter-attack. or a little bit of luck that might go their way. I mean,
VAR, dare I suggest.
Exactly, yeah, VAR. There are so many other elements that can be added into a single game which could affect it massively that we can't comprehend for. But yeah, I think without that, then yeah, the numbers make sense. But you got to think about it with that as well.
Would it be fair to say, James, it's a clearer picture down at the other end of the table?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The 3 promoted clubs, they currently sit inside the Premier League's relegation zone, and the Opta supercomputer doesn't expect that to change come the end of the season. All 3 sides currently have only 1 win each so far from their 12 matches and highly backed to go straight back down. Now, only once in Premier League history have all 3 promoted teams gone straight back down. That was in 1998. That's after last season where all 3 promoted sides avoided the drop, including Bournemouth there. They look, according to the Opta supercomputer, the only side who could potentially be dragged into relegation trouble. So plenty of work to do for those 3 promoted sides.
Yeah, Doogie, does it say anything about the changing landscape of the Premier League at all, that those 3 could end up going back down? But James rightly makes the point that last season all 3 stayed up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just goes to show the level of spending that we've seen in the Premier League over the last few years. I mean, both Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, who are currently 1 place and 3 places outside of the relegation zone, spent over £100 million in the summer. Those clubs that have just been newly promoted don't have the opportunity to do that, or at least it wouldn't be wise given the fact they are quite likely to go straight back down. And I think it goes to show that maybe the Championship last year wasn't its strongest, I would say, as well. I mean, Burnley finishing with over 100 points, Sheffield United with over 90, and they're being outplayed by Luton at the moment. My side, Sunderland, were newly promoted out of the playoffs of League One and made the playoffs in the Championship last year, which felt like a couple of years too early. And rather than suggesting, I think, that Sunderland were ready to go up, it maybe just shows that the league wasn't probably at its strongest last year in the Championship. So I think there's a number of factors there. I think the disappointing thing for the newly promoted sides last year, this year rather, is that Burnley in particular, I think, have struggled to translate their Championship form to the Premier League. A
Sunderland side decimated by injuries, may I add, just Absolutely. To pump up your tyres further.
Thank you very much.
Zach, if you were to make a case for one of the 3 that were promoted, who do you think has the strongest case to stay up?
I think Luton. Their home ground is obviously quite a different place for players to go to. The fans are so close to the pitch as well that make it a different atmosphere. But also the way they've kind of brought their football to the Premier League, it adapts better to the teams they're playing against. It is a little bit more defensive. It is a little bit more on the counter-attack. It is much more physical as well. As Doogie mentioned, Burnley are still trying to play a very much possession-based style, and it's not working out for them. Whereas Luton are more than happy to not have a large majority of the ball and kind of go man for man physically and make it a tough game. And we've seen that. We saw them kind of get unlucky against Tottenham Hotspur a few weeks ago. Only lost 1-0 to Manchester United on the weekend as well.
Nearly beat Liverpool.
Nearly beat Liverpool, exactly, got the draw. They've had a few other results go their way, and I think for them, they're probably the team at the moment anyway that are looking the more likely to stay up.